Film Dive Podcast.
And then it was just sequel after sequel after sequel.
There was no character development at all.
Just that on pure technical levels.
There are filmmakers that don't want it just to be an entertainment experience.
Hello and welcome to Film Dive Podcast, episode 32.
32, yes.
I'm Brandon, you're Dana.
That's
Let's
right.
rock and roll.
Welcome to another week of being stuck at home.
Quarantine, isolation. all
Wherever
those
we are
things.
in the world. Here in Australia, it's getting pretty tight.
Yeah, we've got stage 3, is it?
Yeah,
what they're
stage
calling
3. Effectively lockdown. They don't use the term lockdown, but it's a lockdown.
And they throw away the key.
We're going to start a new kind of series, run through a few animations.
Mm.
And I guess for this podcast specifically, we're going to dive into Pixar.
Yeah.
Just talk more about Pixar as a company and what their role has been in like pop culture and where they are now and that kind of stuff.
Mm. So with Pixar, do you remember when they first came out, the woodwork with Toy Story?
Yeah, so Pixar is an interesting story because it started off at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
There was a department within Lucasfilm experimenting with 3D technology. And they
John
were...
Lasseter and...
Yeah, John Lasseter, and there was a few other people there. John Lasseter, 3D has always been his baby. Before it was a thing, 3D was always his thing. And he'd always been trying to get something up and running with Disney because he was one of those people that went through the Disney ecosystem. And then he was always pushing for 3D. He wanted to make a film back then, Brave Little Toaster. He wanted to make that 3D. And so during his pitch meeting where he was pitching his idea, then they asked him, how long will it take to make? And then he effectively said it won't take any longer and it won't cost any more than a traditional hand-drawn animation film.
Yeah.
And then they effectively ended the meeting there, pulled him aside and said, the only reason why we'd make it is if it was cheaper
And quicker.
or quicker. Otherwise, they had no interest in it, which is a very interesting conversation. Now looking, they refuse almost in the Western world to do 2D,
Yeah.
and it is all 3D.
Yeah.
How the tides have turned.
It's interesting as well, just quickly, because I'm sure there was, as in anything when new technology comes in, everyone gets scared because industries collapse. And so all those animators and whoever was in those jobs would have been thinking straight away, we don't understand what this new thing is.
Yeah.
No, we can't roll that in just yet until there's a foreseeable benefit straight away, and there wasn't. So I guess being cheaper.
Absolutely.
Or
Well, yeah. What
quicker.
other reference do you have for this? This was before Jurassic Park. This was before all of these other
I
things.
think probably the only thing would have been those few bits and pieces, which were like Star Trek had one moment. Sherlock Holmes was like the first legitimate CGI thing. And like Tron, I think, had something in it. There was like things that were coming out that these guys had worked on. They'd worked on, but anyway.
He ended up finding his way into Lucasfilm, doing some cool stuff there. At this point, John Lasseter and the team, they wanted to take it further. And so Lucasfilm agreed to let them go off as a side shoot, as their own business, their own entity, completely separate to Lucasfilm. And that's where Steve Jobs come in, because they started doing all sorts of projects for TV commercials and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then they just weren't making money. And then they were trying to find funding. Steve Jobs, in he comes.
Sees the prospect.
Up until they sold Pixar to Disney, Steve Jobs was
the funder.
He was the man at the helm in terms of the business side of things.
Pretty crazy. Once again, another revolutionary thing he kind of... pioneered, I suppose. Yeah. Was a part of that. And I love those stories. They could make an animation out of that one day.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fun. That'll be great.
Yeah.
A biopic animation.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Pixar. Do you know what that stands for? Pixel arts.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Because originally that was their role with Lucasfilm, was to develop a computer system, a software that would, powerful system that would be able to create these 3D effects.
Yeah.
And that's
which would eventually go in to make episode 1, 2, and 3 Star Wars, which then later
Mhm.
gets absolutely smashed for its special
Yeah.
effects.
They were trying to sell the computers off to people, and that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Eventually, they decided they'll just focus on what they do.
Yeah.
They still have their own software that they develop for their own uses mainly,
Mm.
but yeah, they've given up on selling the computers and stuff.
Yeah, the Pixar story is very interesting.
Mm.
It's something that I've seen the documentaries and stuff
Yeah.
on Wall-E and all those, you know, when they were coming
Mhm.
out. And they had this really lengthy, in-depth, detailed doco on
Yeah.
Pixar.
Yep.
Brilliant thing. So if you're interested in that, check that out.
I think it's on Disney Plus, so it probably is.
Yeah, I
on
think it
Disney
is.
Plus.
Yeah. So definitely check that one out if you haven't already. But yeah, let's just start off. Toy Story, that came out, what, 93 or 4? I think it was
Yeah,
94.
94, I believe.
Yeah. Jurassic Park was 93, I think. Yeah. Toy Story.
Yeah.
It's so early when you think back to it now.
Mm.
It's,
Yeah.
It's like when I think back to it, it was like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around.
It was interesting in that the story was so different when it started. The Toy Story story,
Yeah.
where the characters were almost hateable.
They weren't lovable characters.
No,
Like
not
Woody was,
He was
before
an
Tom
arsehole.
Hanks came on board, it was like he was some grumpy cowboy.
The characters the design was off,
And
and it just wasn't
wasn't
didn't
clicking.
fit. And they knew this, and they were going back and forth between. So that in order to get that film made, they actually got the funding through a deal they did with Disney. So they were separate from Disney, but they had a deal where they'd fund it, and then
Which seems to be an ongoing thing.
up until they bought Pixar
Outright.
outright. that was the deal, and that was part of the reason why they bought them, was because that deal was going sour, and they wanted to hold on to that because effectively that was the only memorable Disney characters in a very long time, in decades, was the Pixar stuff, and that's the reason why they bought them.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the story of Toy Story, they developed the character. They got a decent story. They finally got the green light to create it with a new story. They wrote in weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
Got the film made. It was a big success,
Massive.
huge success, and this is when these Hollywood moguls actually realized, okay, maybe it's not such a bad idea after all.
Maybe there is some money in this.
They went and did Bugs Life. That was one of my favorites of Bugs Life.
Yeah.
As a kid, I ate
that
that.
up.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, that was first time they had a lot of characters on screen at the same time, CGI characters.
Yeah,
so that was like the main thing they pioneered with that.
There was a huge amount of just the ants that would go on into the distance, and they'd all operate as their own beings, which is great.
They weren't just like cut and pasted. And I liked how he gets banished to whatnot, that old cliche, but then, joins that ragtag circus crew. Group.
That was great. They're such lovable characters. The
worm,
caterpillar. I loved him.
The ladybird guy. And then the crickets, the baddies,
And again, this was one where the amount of research they did, they'd actually got these little macro cameras and would go out into the garden and see what everything would look like.
That's so cool.
Which
What a
is
job.
amazing. And everything, it looked just vibrant.
The plants and stuff.
It was great.
Yeah.
Like everything felt like it belonged.
Yeah.
Unlike Ants, if you remember Ants.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't mind that one.
Yeah, you do.
I loved it.
It was
I
very
actually really
brown.
Liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I don't
yeah,
remember too much about it. It again was, DreamWorks.
the reason I
It was a
liked it
rip-off.
was because of the voices.
Mhm.
You had Stallone and Woody Allen. It was essentially a Woody Allen film. My dad was a big fan of, or he's a big fan of. So naturally, I just kind of liked it, and I liked the more grittiness of it. But now, if I think I watched it, it probably wouldn't stand up as strong as A Bug's Life. I think A Bug's Life is a bit more solid.
It's unfortunate that it was effectively a battle of egos between studios, is what it was. Katzenberg, who used to work for Disney, and then to spite Disney,
just started copying and
they effectively copied for a long time. They were copying him. We had ants, a fishtail,
a shark's
tail, whatever it is.
Exactly.
There was a heap of them.
Yeah,
They'd always bring them out for a long time. They kept just making rip-offs just to try and They never did as well, so it was very bad. Not until Shrek, when they realised, okay, we can have our own style.
And Shrek is essentially they're making fun of Disney anyway. Like the whole movie's just to make fun of
It's
Disney.
a fairy tale thing.
Yeah. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah. Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2. Interesting story with this one. Failed big time. They had a lot of problems at the start.
Yeah,
John Lasseter wasn't directing it.
Yeah. John Lasseter said, I'm tired, I'm exhausted.
He needed a break.
You do it, and then it was going to be straight to DVD.
Yeah, Disney was actually...
Straight to VHS.
Because at this point in time, Disney were running things and all had a big say, I think.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, well, they were just organising to do a straight to DVD release. And then John Lasseter heard about it and was just like...
No.
Put the brakes on that. Said we are not that company. We do not cheapen ourselves. We have a standard, and we do not go below that standard. You might, Disney, but we don't.
Which it was great that he took a stand and he got his way.
Got back into work, and
Yeah.
he had to basically hit the reset button on everything they had come up with, and they basically had quarter of the time that they normally should or would have. And they crunched it, and they nearly lost everything they did, towards the end of the film as well. Yeah. Luckily, one employee had it all saved on their computer at home because they're working at home. So luckily, it was saved. It's a brilliant story.
It's interesting because we lose stuff, files. You never think it happens to other people, but it does.
Yeah. Especially at that time as well. Like
Mary Max had a similar moment where they lost a couple of weeks of their stuff on a hard drive. No. Interesting. Back
up. Save, back up.
Don't rely on hard drives.
No, have several.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting documentary on Toy Story 2. If you want to know more about that, bloody check that one out because that is very, very insightful. What dropped after that? Monsters, Inc. Wow, so that must have been, 98 or 99?
I remember I was in grade 6 when I first saw it.
Okay, so it must have been
School
about 98 camp. Or something.
Yeah.
97. It sounds so old now when you think back.
Yeah, it was long.
Jeez. Time's flown.
Yeah.
Fur, the animation.
Yeah, that was the first real. It was great. The different Sully, that's it.
Yeah, still
and
remember
Mike, what was that? Wazowski?
Yes.
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah, Wazowski. Bloody John Goodman and Billy Crystal. What a great casting there.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved the voice. They've always done so well casting voices. Yeah. They've always got that right.
Yeah. The different anatomy was also, the playing with different anatomy was great. Yeah,
big furry guy, little eyeball.
And then
you've got
all these different characters.
The invisible guy, the villain, Steve Buscemi, I think it was.
The little lizard thing.
Yeah, it's either Steve Buscemi or James Woods, I can't remember.
One of them.
But yeah, I think that one still is probably one of the strongest ones.
Absolutely.
Just because it's really cool.
And the message is always so strong.
Yeah, they will just one after another. The messages are so bloody strong. You can't even fault them on those in any way. But Are Real Monsters, we spoke about this. The Nickelodeon show. Very similar.
Yeah.
And we only sort of discovered that when we were talking about Nickelodeon stuff. Yeah. And it clicked. I was like, hang on. Monsters, nightmares, scares.
Yep.
Very similar.
There it is, yeah.
In ways. So that's interesting, I think. There's something there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen... There's a lot of similarities between some of these. Like, if you look back at, A Bug's Life... Probably look at something like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
True.
Keep
elements.
going.
There's always elements.
They had that G.I. Joe little soldiers.
Yeah, one. Toy Story.
Yeah.
The toy soldiers, man.
Oh, yeah.
Small Soldiers?
Small Soldiers.
Small Soldiers, yes. The guy that directed Gremlins did that.
And then moving on from there, what comes next?
Finding
Let's
Nemo.
keep swimming. Let's keep swimming. Now that one.
I think this is the one that just... Really,
this is the top.
Yeah, just blew open the Pixar door, and everyone was invited now. Everyone was on board. Yeah. Who did not want to see a beautiful underwater story like this? And
there's the next lot of technology to play with was water.
How good are they? Every film they just master something and
that's it.
Show the world how it's done, and then they just go, yep, enjoy. Finding Nemo. Who did not like that film? I can't diss it.
And it's great, got Australian involved.
I know, that's even better.
Had go to Sydney.
Yeah.
And we didn't have fake Australians, we had real Australians.
I know. I did such...
And Rove.
Rove, Barry Humphries did the shark.
Yeah.
Bruce. I'm
Fish.
having fish tonight. And after that, this is where Pixar probably started going, okay, what are we going to do? They're scrambling a bit here.
The Incredibles.
Yes, so Incredibles. Humans.
Mm.
After they had a little taste of humans in Finding Nemo, they were like, okay, we got to get the humans done now.
And it was very difficult because if you look at the humans, that was the only thing that, even when I was a child, would throw me out of Toy Story, was those characters. You can tell they didn't have
plasticky humans.
And they tried, the walking cycles weren't quite right, and it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, like they always felt like they needed a lot more time to develop those elements.
Yeah.
And I guess they avoided it for a while as long as they could. They're like, nah, we can't spend time on humans because they're just too hard to do at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's why they sort of went around that for as long as they could.
Yeah.
And then they get to Finding Nemo, had a little bit more humans with the dentist and the dentist's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Still not 100%.
Yeah, it was still sort of, you'd mainly seen from like...
Yeah, they're still kind of hiding from it a bit. But then they were like, no, we got to do it now. And then The Incredibles. Even though it's not photorealistic in any way. It's...
Again, they were playing with a lot of different things here. Now we had the hair.
Yeah. Stretchy suits or something.
We had all sorts of things.
Different fabrics.
Explosions and that kind of thing were really fleshed out.
Action. A lot of action.
Yeah, trying to... Yeah, I guess that was a strong takeaway. This is probably the first time we saw like real action as we would expect action in this kind of format.
And being 2004, we had...
Yeah.
Not many superhero stuff out at that time. I think Spider-Man just kicked off, X-Men had kicked off, but we're still in that very infancy of superhero stuff.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, Incredibles, was that film for me at that time that gave me that superhero stuff that I was like, that's how you do a superhero film. Yeah. And Brad Bird, the director, he is just magic behind the camera. I love his personality. He's a great guy. Yeah. Yeah, he's such a wacky dude and
down to earth. Yeah. It's fun if you watch the documentary we were referring to before, you can see him and he's just like a casual
He does
guy.
the voice for E.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. Very good, darling. Just the way he's just so hands-on and you can tell he's one of the animators. He's got that kind of rapport with his team. I reckon.
His directing style I can relate to because my directing style is very similar. Yeah. Where it's you're almost like a kid again when you're directing. You're almost winding yourself back and you get so animated and so excited when you do that. And that happens to me personally when I do it.
It's great. Love seeing it. It's infectious for cast and crew. If you got someone like that anywhere, that's just you just naturally go, well, he's putting in so much,
he's passionate,
and it's rubbing off on everyone else, and it just makes the workplace so cool. And then we get the return of John Lasseter, who took a little break after a while, coming out with his pet project, Cars.
Which was a inspiration from when he went on holiday, when he went
with his kids,
drive around the country in their car.
I admire that. He had an idea. He wanted to make it. Yeah. He's fascinated by cars and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Not my cup of tea.
No, I wouldn't say it's my is in my top 5 Pixar films.
I wouldn't say. I'd say it's probably at the bottom.
Yeah, it wasn't. But it did do one thing and really bring merchandise to the Pixar franchise.
Yeah, I guess that was the...
and that really, they were just able to just sell so
and it's still today. It's going stronger than ever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's the
one
thing.
One of my, partner's best friend, her son, he is all about Lightning McQueen and all the cars. Yeah. He's got cars, everything. And that's saying something.
When I was a kid, I always remembered, I always wanted one of those really big, giant, fancy Buzz Lightyears. That was my thing. I never got it. I got a little version of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't have all the bells and whistles. Yeah. And in the Disney store, back when we had the Disney store here in Australia, they'd have them and I'd just spend hours just playing with it inside the box.
Buzz Lightyear to the rescue.
Anyway, back to the film. Cars. Yeah. I mean, some people liked it.
Yeah.
Car
enthusiasts.
It made a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of kids went and saw that. I think there's,
It was a success.
One more for the kids than
It was-
anything.
It's not one for me.
This is the first of the 2-part series on Pixar.
See you next time.
And we'll see you next time to finish off our Pixar journey.
Yeah.
See you later.
Adios.